Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Walter's Wanderings Travel Podcast. My name is Scott Walters, your host from Walter's Wanderings Travel, and I just want to let you know before we bring in our guest that it is my 7th anniversary year as a travel advisor / dream creator / bucket list checker. So I will be able to help you get to where you want to go, whether it's now or later. And I want to let you know that if you book in the month of May and you have until the 31st, you will get, upon your return from your travels, either a $25 gift card to the establishment of your choice or a $50 credit towards future travel with Walter's Wanderings Travel. So again, book this month and you'll get the goodies because it's my anniversary. I want to give you all the gifts. So now I want to go ahead and bring in our guest today. This is Jay Banks, and she has a very apt last name because she deals with money and monetary issues, especially with travel. And first of all, I want to thank you for being with us today on the Walter's Wanderings Travel Podcast.
You are so welcome. I'm definitely excited.
All right. So now when one travels, there are different things you need to concern yourself with, not just your physical well-being and safety, because of course those are paramount, but also your fiscal well-being and safety, because there are certain things that can happen when you're traveling that you might not be aware of. So why don't you describe a couple of scenarios where things can happen that would rather maybe be unsettling or worse, or could be ruined to a vacation?
Well, some of the things that we have encountered is that a lot of time people do not understand the authorization codes and how that goes through. So you would walk into the hotel, you would pay, and most people think that it would be debited from their account at that time. But what we're finding out is people are not prepared for the 3-4 day hold that's actually put on. So a lot of times it'll show up as a pending charge. Sometimes it will actually present as though it has hit your account, but then it'll come off. So with those types of hotels, what you'll find is they will still call you the next morning and have you come downstairs and say, oh, you need to pay for another day. And, the traveler thinks that they've already paid, which they have. It just hasn't gone through their bank yet. So that's something that people need to understand.
That's a very good scenario, but just to let you know that that actually happens more to people who book directly with the hotels rather than through a travel agent. So if you book through a travel agent, a travel advisor like me, you're going to be much less apt to have all those hold issues because we're dealing with different travel partners and suppliers. And sometimes we're dealing with the hotel chains directly, but because they're dealing with us as a middle person, it ends up that those whole things are much less of a problem for people who travel using a travel advisor. So this is actually a word to the wise and a cautionary tale, and I actually like that.
Right. Exactly. We do find better benefits when you're going through travel agencies versus just going yourself and you're trying to book and do it yourself. Then you do incur fees. And a lot of times, if the hotel is independent owned, it's fees that the actual chain doesn't mention because the hotel itself, whatever state is in, is allowed to charge those fees.
That's right. And that's another thing you bring up that sort of dovetails into something that people have to be very careful of. A lot of hotels now are charging what they call resort fees. Now, what these resort fees are, I don't know, because it's like 3 years ago, it was the same hotel and it was the same thing, and they didn't charge this resort fee. It does two things. Well, first of all, it adds revenue to the hotel that becomes non-commissionable to the travel advisor, me. That's number one thing. And number two thing, it does add extra profit into their pockets that maybe they weren't receiving even 2-3 years ago. So when you do check in, when you do book with a travel advisor like me, I will tell you up front, what the actual resort fees might be. I also tell you up front what the taxes are, because in some places, taxes can be as high as 25% a night on a room. I'm working with a group right now going to Long Beach, California before a cruise, and the hotel room itself isn't cheap. But then when you lop on 25% in taxes on top of it, wow, the price just really soars up. So that's one issue that's important. Now, what about when you're doing, buying your touristy stuff, your the beautiful clothes in some location, or the perfume that you might get, or jewelry, depending on where you're going. Different locations are known for having different things available. What should you be on the lookout for when you are purchasing things at stores when you're away on a vacation?
Well, one of the things that I find important is to be on the lookout as far as purchasing is when you go into a business and their machines are not working and they use I don't know what the machine is called, but they put it actually embed it in the
Oh,
machine
the
and they
impress,
swipe.
right? The old impress machine, which used to be the way it was before all these
Right.
modems and all that. Sure.
Right. So a lot of times you will have where, especially if it's a new employee, they may not know how to work the machine and they want to take your card number down. Yeah, I don't want to say that that's illegal. It's just something that you should try to shy away from. Also, again, if you've booked through an agency or with the hotel chain directly, but then you're in the office, you should not be charging your card again. You shouldn't be using your payment in that form. You have to either contact your bank or you have to sit in and let it go through, because if you don't, it will result in double charges. And Visa, if you have a Visa card, they're going to let it go through.
All right, so there you go. I mean, it's nice to have these things. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is debit card versus credit card. There are certain inherent advantages of using a credit card if you have one over a debit card. One is obviously those hold things, because a credit card, it's more difficult to do the holds than with a debit card. The other thing is obviously consumer protection when you use a credit card compared to a debit card.
Okay, well, when we're talking about consumer protection, basically when you're using a credit card and your credit card gets swiped, you're authorizing that amount. A lot of times when you're staying in a hotel, the fine print says that whatever other charges, they are authorized to go ahead and charge you and they don't have to ask you. So things like that is something people need to be aware of when they're protecting themselves, because of the simple fact that it could be something as simple as you may have damaged something or whatever, or something may be that way when you first check in. Whatever it is, you need to let them know, because if they are the type of business that takes those permissions and will go ahead and charge your card, you will have to constantly check your bank account. When you're using your debit card, we all know that that money is automatically deducted from your account. And so you have to also go back again, though, when you're traveling, to make sure that it hasn't been a double charge to your account. So we've experienced both of those situations. And we do prefer, when booking and you're going to be in one location for a certain amount of time, to go ahead and use your credit card. That means for us, you will see whatever needs to come on, whatever comes off of your bank account, you're watching it yourself. When you're just going out to eat and things of that nature, it's best to go ahead and actually just use the debit so it can go ahead and be cashed out by the time you're finished with your meal. Most banks may take 24 hours to hit your account, but a lot of times within 5 minutes, it's going to take it out of your account and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
No, it's true, and that's a good point. And yeah, there are certain things about debit cards that are good, like eating at a restaurant or doing something that's more of a short order kind of thing, versus the long game of using the credit card. Plus, also with the credit cards, a lot of credit cards have different loyalty programs, and if you can utilize that to get other advantages later on. Now, contacting your financial institution before you leave. What kind of trips should you do that for? Should you do it basically for every trip you take? I know once I was in Barbados, and then all of a sudden my wife's credit card wasn't going through because the fraud protection unit came out and said, no, we're not going to authorize this because who's in Barbados? So I literally had to call from the location I was at, which was actually a rum distillery, and I had to call from the rum distillery, and I said, look, we're in Barbados. You see where this call is coming from? It's coming from the rum distillery. We want to buy some rum. So please release the card so we can use it. So tell us about how to go about contacting financial institutions pre-trip.
Okay, well, personally and through business, we contact the bank whenever we're traveling, period, just to be on the safe side. A lot of times you can have a set limit set. Just like you can set your card for ATM withdrawals and purchases, you can also set a limit for when you're going out of town. That lets the bank know, okay, we're going out of town for a family reunion. It should not be a $5,000 purchase. And if it is, they will contact you before they let it go and say, hey, did you make this? It's a simple text, yes or no, and they'll let it go through. But it's always best practices when you're going out of town to call your bank and let them know. Because just because you swipe your card, they wouldn't know, that it's you until they talk to you.
Yes, because there are certain people you should contact before you go away. The post office to deal with your mail, the police department so they bring the police car to your neighborhood, maybe a little bit more frequently, and obviously your financial institution. So those are 3 calls that should be made anytime you go on a trip. Now, let's talk about the other side of this. Obviously, when you're in, your place that you go to, you've already committed your money, but you have to obviously have the money to commit. And so the other side of things is obviously planning and budgeting for vacations. A lot of people really don't do that. And with the ability of having small deposits from many venues, I mean, Disney World's a $200 deposit for ruin. And I've booked $15,000, $20,000 trips for people, but they've only put down $200. So, and then cruise lines are relatively reasonable. Some are, they have promotions where it's $50 a person. Right now, Norwegian Cruise Lines is $125 a person. So, in other locations, it varies by location. Now, there are some places that do, ask for the money all up front, but many locations do the deposit. And with a travel advisor, you can actually go ahead and, contact me and we'll make regular payments. How does one best, financially plan to go on vacations, and what are some of the good strategies that should be utilized?
Well, I do believe in just over planning a little bit. So we teach, our clients to start setting aside a lot of bank accounts. We bank with credit unions primarily, but in most accounts, you're able to have it set to where you can have X amount of money deposited into a savings account, on your paychecks or on your pay period. It's always good to have an extra savings account. So I know some of our clients will have a checking account, they will have a savings account, and then they will have an extra emergency savings account. When you're doing those 2 accounts, you don't want to take from your emergency account. When you go on a trip, you should still have that emergency fund available. So even with your employer, you can let your employer know, hey, I want to deposit 75% of my check into my checking account and the other 25% into this account. And when you do that and you're dealing with a travel agency, that's going to be the main account that the money is going to be withdrawn from. And you really shouldn't have to worry about fees as long as the money is in there. But the most fees you're going to get is the kickback from your own bank, from the return check fees and things of that nature. So it's best to have an extra account set up to use. You don't want to look at your checking. You don't want to look at your regular accounts every day because you won't see the benefits until after the fact.
Right. Now, I do want to mention that myself at Walters Wanderings Travel, I don't take checks and I don't take cash and I don't take Venmo and I don't take Zelle and I don't take PayPal. I take credit card numbers from people. All right. Only because it's a much safer, it's a much more efficient transaction. It's a safer transaction. It's one that can be traced more easily. My fiduciary, business is taken care of because I just literally, and it's with every client, and trust me, even the ones that pay me monthly, they, don't you have my credit card number on file? No, because I scrub it from my systems as soon as I get confirmation that the payment's been made. I don't need to have that information because what if say my laptop or my cell phone was stolen and a whole bunch of credit cards was in it? Oh my gosh, the scandal that would erupt. So, again, that savings account that you have for the vacations or for the savings and for those kind of things, just make sure that when you do a transaction with me, to simply go ahead and do it from the credit card, move the money from the credit card to that, from that account to the credit card so that you cover your payment. And again, and the thing is, the magic of the credit card is if you stay current, the credit card company still loves you if you stay current. The credit card company loves you more if you're not, but they do
Right.
love you. They still love you if you stay current, and then and there's no crime in that at all.
Right.
So now, why don't you tell everyone about your business? Give some contact information so they can be in touch with you, because obviously you provide a very important service in this day and age. No doubt, the identity theft and all that goes with it is really like it's much worse than it ever has been. The spam phone callers and everything else. So give us your information so we can be in touch with you, so that people can reach out and get the proper financial advice.
Okay. Well, I own In Real Life Enterprises, and it is a consulting and services firm. We focus on management, training and development, and human resources. We have a financial strategies program that we run with our clients for free, where we teach you different ways of managing your money, how to invest, and your protection. One of the best ways to reach us is to just call us at 877-807-7477, or you can always go to our website at www.irlanswers.com, and someone will always get back to you. Basically, when you take the financial courses, it's free, as I said, and we're also linked with specific insurance agencies as well, because financial and insurance sort of go together at some point.
Sure.
And we're more than happy to reach out to anyone that contacts us. We'll get back to you.
All right, so that's www. I for in, R for real, L for life, answers.com.
Yes, sir.
So there we go. Well, listen, I really appreciate you being on. You offer some great advice, especially in this day and age. There's no doubt that it's really, really important to make sure you're on top of all different things, because without that balance, you're out of balance, and if you're out of balance, well, bad stuff happens. It's really that simple.
Yes.
So again, I really appreciate you being on with me, Ms. J. Banks from In
Thank
Real
you.
Life. I appreciate that. And I want to let everyone know again that this is a Walters Wandering Travel podcast. $25 when you return from a trip that you book in May of 2021. And you can book out to even 2023 for cruises. Some cruises even 2024. So you get an extra bonus of that, or future cruise, or future travel credit. So I really appreciate that everyone being on board today, and look for more great content on the Walters Wandering Travel podcast. Everyone have a great day.